So as the hours tick by and minutes and seconds, what you want to say about this January transfer window, which is just rumbling on, doesn't it? It always feels like it runs right to the very death until the deals get completed. I think it's becoming quite clear that Evan Ferguson is our number one target at this stage, and West Ham really want to try and get that deal done in terms of a striker. But I'm joined by Tom to discuss this in a little bit more detail, get his thoughts on it. Because I've got to be honest, Tom, I'm a little bit on the fence with this. I'm not quite sure. One minute I'm feeling quite positive, then I'm feeling quite anxious about the whole thing. Before we go into it, though, mate, how are you? You all right? You're looking better today.
Yeah, I'm on the back end of the conjunctivitis. Thank you. It's anyone who has watching this has little kids will know they pick up things from nursery and then pass them on to you, which is always nice. But I'm starting to feel a bit more human, so that's all good.
Oh, mate, I tell you, that's the worst part. The amount of colds that kids bring home is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've got two girls, and our house is forever. Something. It's always something going around our house. Flu virus, whatever it is. It's an absolute nightmare. So yeah, I feel your pain, mate. Feel your pain. Yeah, glad you're feeling better, though, mate. Yeah, you are looking better. A little bit less red-eyed today. They're just easing up. Pink Eye Tom. That's what I like to call you. That's a unique name, which I think is right catchy. I think that works quite well. We'll change your name at the bottom there to that. I think that'll go down quite well. Right, Evan Ferguson. Let's talk about him.
Yeah,
I'm really mixed minds about this. I think there's a lot of positives and a lot of negatives to this deal, and I think West Ham have got to be very careful in how we tread. It appears that we are quite advanced, Tom, with these talks now with Evan Ferguson. I mean, going on for quite a while, quite a few weeks. I think it's clear that this is a player that Graham Potter wants. I'll say Carl McCauley as well is quite keen by the looks of it, bringing him in, which that element brings me confidence to it because I feel like Potter comes across very sensible. I don't think he would necessarily just want to link up with a player just because he's worked with him before and disregard any risk. I'm sure he's considering the risk of this, so that gives me a little bit of confidence. But I still have an element of doubt when it comes to his injuries. Let's talk about the negative side before we go into the positives. Let's try and get that bit out of the way first. How are you? Is there any anxiety from yourself, Tom, regarding Ferguson, if we were to bring him in?
Yeah, massively so, massively so. I mean, I think he's a great player. That goes without saying. He clearly is a talent. He's got lots of interest elsewhere. So his talent is not questioned, really. It is his injury record, obviously. We all know that. And we just don't have a good record with injuries and strikers. And I feel at this stage, is it worth the risk? If Nicholas Fulkrug, for example, was fit and he just wasn't quite performing, say, or he didn't quite match up to Graham Potter's philosophy or style, I'd say it's worth the risk because we've got a striker there that can play. And then if Evan Ferguson comes in and is fit, he will start, and then Fulkrug comes off the bench. When you don't have that, this person that comes into the club, he has to start. Like, he has to start week in, week out and be the main man. And I just don't know if Evan Ferguson has got it in him at the moment to do that. His injury record speaks for itself. So there is a lot of anxiety there, and our record, in the past. And I almost think, obviously, we'll go on to the positives and we'll go on to, if there's obligations and all this kind of thing in terms of the deal. But I almost think, is there a real plus side for us? Let's say he comes in and he scores 10 goals, for example, which would be good for the rest of the season. What do we get out of that? If there is no obligation or there's no option to buy, what do we get out of that? Are we just, almost getting a Brighton player, a rival, if you like, to break into that top six, their star striker fit and firing for the next season? And then we've got to go again and bring someone else in. But the negative side, at the moment, in my eyes, it does outweigh it because he could come in, and I can see it already. He goes, he comes onto the pitch in a West Ham shirt. He looks really good. We're all really excited. And then the ankle goes or whatever goes, and we don't see him again. And I think the biggest ability at the moment for this striker has to be availability. Get him on the pitch. Can he play week in, week out? So that's my initial thoughts. And so to answer your question, there is a lot of anxiety about this deal, if you like.
Yeah, I'm quite fearful. As I say, some moments I don't feel so much. It's just where I'm sort of what I'm considering. So the negative side, as you say, well, first of all, like you say, Tom, it's West Ham. It's West Ham as a striker, which is always a horrendous combination. Always fills me with anxiety with whoever we're going to get, because it feels like we never get this appointment right. Even regarding getting a technical director in that supposedly, you know, understands the market, is going to go out and scour and get us the best striker. He was the one that come up with Fulkrug, who's been a disaster, really. You know, no dig at him, but he hasn't been a good signing because he's just been injured pretty much for all of his time here. So I'm quite scarred by that, like we all are. With Ferguson, I mean, his injury record isn't great. Okay, he had a cruciate knee injury, which he did recover from. I've got the stats, also the information here. He had a knee injury. He recovered from that in September. Oh no, sorry. He came out August 24. He came away from that. So he was out for around about 160, 170 days. He missed football. So it was a long period. In fact, it missed here. It's saying, quite a few handful of games. He did miss a lot of football, as you can imagine. It's a big chunk of time when he was recovering from a knee injury. He's also had 2 spells of ankle issues. First was back in April 23. And then most recently, he got one again in December last year, which he's just recovered from. The positive thing is he's actually available now. So Brighton have confirmed he's actually available for selection this weekend. So he is fit. He has been training. But it's with this, I want West Ham. This is, if I could have a wish on this transfer or this deal, would be that we have an option to buy at the end of the season. So we get him on loan, we have first refusal, and then we can trial him out for the next few months, see how he gets on. If he stays injury free between now and the end of the season, and like you say, scoring goals in great form and really helps lift West Ham, let's say top half, whatever, like we talked about this before, where we get to. And then West Ham have a consideration to make in the summer whether we want to make it permanently, and then maybe hopefully we've agreed a fee already with Brighton. So if we decide that we want to proceed, we can click the button and say, yeah, £40 million, whatever it may be, and get the player in. I'm concerned though by what I'm hearing, that West Ham are in quite advanced talks at the moment over a permanent transfer now, or possibly having a loan with an obligation to buy in the summer, which I just think is just such a huge gamble. And I don't think we've got that luxury to have this gamble. We don't have a lot of money to spend, as we know. We're not a poor football club, but we've got to stick within the rules of PSR. We've already committed to spending £30 million in the summer on Todibo. That was part of that arrangement for him to come over. So already that's a big chunk of money gone in the summer pot. I'm fearful that West Ham are about to do the same for Ferguson, and that's causing me quite a lot of anxiety. Like you say, Tom, I've just got this horrible vision of him coming into West Ham within 5 minutes, in breaking down, and then we're in trouble, and then all of a sudden we're committed to signing this player. I'd like to think West Ham are quite sensible. You know, all right. Maybe I don't think West Ham. I'd like to hope that we're going to be sensible with this, and we are going to be on the front foot here. Also, another point, Tom, which I think's worrying me more than anything, is the way Brighton are going about their business here. Let's not forget, Brighton put £100 million price tag on this guy 2 seasons ago when he first burst on the scene. So he was 18 at the time. He came on the scene. That's where he effectively made his name, really. He came straight on and he seemed to be bossing defenders around. He kind of reminded me a little bit like Rooney did. That sort of like he just came on as a kid and he looked like an established Premier League striker as a teenager. You know, he was very strong and great finisher. And I thought, wow, this player's amazing. Hence why that price tag was put on him. The fact they're talking about £30-40 million sale now, doesn't that sort of ring alarm bells? They thinking, well, if they think that he's not injury prone and he's not got any issues, long-term issues here, then surely they'd be going, well, why would we sell him for that? I'm getting a little bit worried. I'm going to be honest. Yeah, that's where I'm currently sitting in terms of the anxiety side of it. Tom, I don't know what West Ham are being quite cagey. Everyone's been a little bit cagey about what the discussions are. Apparently, it's talks over a loan and there's talks over a permanent deal. So I do feel like something's going to happen in regards to a longer term arrangement. But if you could pick your ideal scenario for this, if you had a way for it, particularly on Ferguson, not necessarily going for another striker, but with Ferguson, how would you like to see West Ham play this?
Yeah, I think you're bang on with the option, because, you know, we don't want to commit to a signing where And you're right to say when something seems too good to be true, it normally is. And if Brighton are looking at 30-40 million for what was a £100 million player a couple of seasons ago, that it raises alarm bells, doesn't it? It just does. So yeah, I think that option is the best scenario. If Graham Potter thinks that he might be over the worst of his injury problems, then maybe it's something that we could do, and then an option would definitely be the best way to go. It means that we don't, even if he does do well, but we're still worried about his injury problems. So say he comes in, he plays 75% of the games, does miss a few games from knocks, does okay, scores 5 or 6 goals. We don't have to commit. We might say, do you know what? It's the summer now. The market's a bit larger. There's more players available. We're actually going to shop elsewhere. Rather than that, you're committed to that. So that would be my thing as well, going for the option. And it does put us in the driving seat. But I'm really wary of Brighton's activity here as well. They don't seem like, I mean, you'll know more than I do, but they don't seem like they've got a replacement lined up. They've got an injury-prone striker in Danny Welbeck already. So they are relying heavily on João Pedro and Ruta. And for them to not even really looking to be in the market for a replacement does worry me. It says to me that they're not really fussed if he stays or he goes. They know he's got talent, but they're just at their wits' end with the injury issues, which we've had before. You know, with Andy Carroll, we get to the situation where we think he just needs to go now. It's just been too long. It's just been too many injuries. It's, you know, you get him back on the pitch, you're all excited, and then he goes again, and it's one thing after the other. So yeah, my dream scenario for Evan Ferguson would be an option. He comes in, he does really well, and we think, do you know what, 30, even 40 million at this day and age is not. It's not a lot, to be honest. It's not like 60, 70 million that we were looking at Duran. So we say, do you know what? He might have a couple of injuries, but it's worth the 30, 40 million. What?
It's still a chunk, though, isn't it? It's still a big chunk. Because considering if our budget's, you know, let's just say it's in the £100 million mark, let's just go and say it. And we're going to need a fair amount of money this summer with Graham Potter and McCauley wanting to do their work. And the fact that we've already got 30 of that gone onto Debo, I know there's talk that we possibly move him on, but I'm not convinced we would at this stage. But I am reluctant. I'm worried that we're going to spend the volume money we're talking here. It just feels like a big commitment. And I mean, obviously, we don't know the details of it yet, but the talk is about a permanent transfer. That's what's being mooted around at the moment. That is under discussion. So I am a little bit anxious. It's really strange, Tom, right? Because as a part of me yesterday, I was quite excited by it. I was reading about Ferguson. I was looking at highlights of him, sort of reminding myself of his ability, and was then thinking, God, this guy, if we can keep him fit, this could be one of the top 5 Premier League strikers next season. He could be, you know, banging goals in, and we've found the right player, and we've got Bowen fit, and we've got Somerville. I'm getting all excited by it. And then really weirdly, right, then I think it might have been West Ham Football with Sean Whetstone. He put out a tweet and said there's talk that West Ham might not do any business now in January, of deciding Graham Potter's weighing up his options and thinking, and I kind of get it, by the way, this, weighing up his options and thinking, well, look, actually, I think I can work with this squad until now, the end of the season, and then we can go in the summer. And we've got, let's be honest, the summer transfer market is far more favourable to be doing business than it is in January mid-season. And I found myself pleased. Like, it's almost like I was quite relieved. I'm thinking, oh, thank God we're actually not going to commit anything, and we can just save our money. Let's get through this season. Hopefully finish it on a high, which I think we will under Potter. I think it will be a far more positive second half than it was the first. But it's strange. I'm finding myself quite like hoping that actually that might be the case. You know, I know certain fans don't want to hear that and annoyed, and we know we want to see obviously the club trying to push on and strengthen, but that's where I'm at. So it's a real mixed bag I'm feeling with this, and I just feel like with Ferguson, as much as I feel like there's so much potential there, and there is potential. I mean, we'll talk about him in a second in terms of his qualities, because he is a great player when he's fit. The risk is so big here. We've got to be really careful. So I'm like you. I feel like we're in agreement here. I feel like if West Ham are to do a deal with Ferguson, let's make sure it's a loan. A straight loan would be great as well. If they just say it's just a loan, no options, nothing else. He's just going to be here for a few months, and then we'll see things out at the end of the season. all alone with an option. And the only reason I'm thinking option because I'm thinking of Jesse Lingard and what we had previously, where we should have had an option there to buy him because that backfired a little bit, and he was a great, obviously, loan signing for us. So that's where I'm kind of sitting on it. Let's talk about, there's a lot of negatives about Ferguson, but I think, as I say, I've been looking at him recently, that he is a fabulous player, mate. There's no doubt about it. When he's fit, this guy has the potential to be one of the top Premier League strikers. West Ham, if let's just imagine we do get Ferguson, and actually this injury period he's had for the last 18 months, 2 years has been just a bit of a blip in his career, and actually he's going to kick on and become more less injury prone and become a bit more normal in terms of picking up knocks here and there, but that's pretty much as worse as it gets. West Ham could be getting an absolute bargain here. We really could. What are your thoughts on the qualities of Evan Ferguson?
Yeah, I mean, as most people, big fan of his. I think you mentioned Rooney. It's funny, he sort of reminds me a bit of that Alan Shearer type player as well in terms of his strength, the way he holds the ball up, the way he sort of just bullies defenders. And yet, for someone his size and physique almost, he can actually run the channels as well, which is what we've been crying out for. It's funny that during David Moyes, we were crying out for that Antonio replacement. And we tended to go for more of a target man in Haller and Scamacca that couldn't really run the channels. And we were just crying out for that person who can just run the channels and just bully defenders, be physical up there, hold the ball up, and obviously score goals. And I think he does tick a lot of those boxes. So, yeah, I mean, it is exciting. That part of it, you are 100% correct, because if he does start playing, we can get him fit and firing. Like you say, he's probably in the top 10, probably even 5 strikers in the Premier League, out and out number 9s. He's one of those players that his finishing, for me, the way he just wraps the ball into the back of the net, is such a strong point. He's got that sort of Jermaine Defoe type finish as well about him, where he just absolutely puts his foot behind it and it just fires into the back of the net. He doesn't, he's a really good all-round striker, really big fan. And there's a reason that, Brighton put a price tag of £100 million on him. He's got a lot of strengths. He's got a lot of things going for him. If we can get him fit and firing, 30, 40 million pounds would be an absolute bargain. And also what it means that we could do, say, it does go well, he comes in, he's playing well, we have the option, we trigger the option. If we can then find someone else, say less profile, let's say, for example, argument's sake, Middlesbrough, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Love, yeah.
Say you bring him in, and then you can manage Ferguson's game time a little bit more. A little bit like Eddie Howe's done at Newcastle with Callum Wilson, who also had cruise ship problems. You're not going to start them every game. I know, Callum Wilson's not playing a lot anymore due to ESAC, but he has really managed that and been able to get a lot out of him in terms of what an injury-prone player he is. And I think if you can bring someone else in to sit alongside Ferguson, and then you might have a game every other week for Ferguson, and then Lath comes in and fills the times he can't play, and just manage him a little bit, because you don't want to. My worry is that he comes in, he plays well, we trigger the option, and then he's starting every week, and then it is an injury waiting to happen, like we've always felt with Antonio, like we've always felt with other strikers that we brought into the club. So a lot of positives for him in terms of a player, and if he comes in and is firing, 30, 40 million quid is an absolute bargain.
Yeah, I think there is loads of potential to this. It could be a fantastic piece of business by West Ham. I'm excited to see Ferguson come and play for West Ham. I've got to be honest. It'd be great to see a player of that quality come and play for us and see how he gets on, as long as we're not just overly committed. That's my only real fear of this. And the noises are that we are discussing the potential of doing that. So I think there is that, and that is making me worry. But I think that it'll be one of those, if West Ham do say, look, do you know what, we're going to spend £40 million now, or we're going to make an arrangement so it's a permanent deal in the summer, and we're happy to shake hands on it, then I'm willing to trust Potter. I'm willing to trust McCauley and say, well, look, they know this guy. They're the ones taking the risk. I mean, Potter's making it very clear as well in his press conferences that he's the issue at the moment as to why we're not getting business done, because he said, I'm being very picky. So I don't want players just coming here just to make up numbers, just to bring someone in. So I want players that are going to do well for the club. So with that in mind, I'm feeling like I want to trust Potter on this. I don't want to worry about it too much. It's just going to be interesting to see how it pans out. As I say, on one aspect, I am feeling quite excited about it as well. But yeah, I want that anxiety to go away really, and I think it will if West Ham just don't commit at the moment. That's all. Just don't commit to a permanent transfer now. Let's get an arrangement in that works for the club. And you also, before we wrap this up, Tom, you mentioned another thing that's quite interesting, which was Mikel Antonio. Now, Mikel Antonio is a player that, as we know, was very, very injury prone. I mean, his hamstrings were going pretty much. He wouldn't have a game of 10, a run of 10 matches. He'd have probably about 5 to 7 games, and he would break, and he'd be gone for months. And this was a regular occurrence, wasn't it? This was going on for 2 or 3 seasons where we rarely had Antonio fit. When he did, he made a big impact. Then again, he'd pull up. And then West Ham put him on a program, changed his diet, changed his training regime. They had to manage him better. We're still doing it now. Antonio's not really a player that can play 2 games a week. For instance, they had to manage it. When we were in Europe, they had to be very careful where they managed his time. And it may well be that West Ham are going to have to do the same with Ferguson. Like you said, don't have him that's someone that's going to be our main striker. You're going to be playing 90 minutes week in, week out. Cup games, we might have to learn to balance his time. So what I'm thinking is that West Ham have got experience with this, not only experience with this, but actually experience in doing this successfully. So there's another reason for a bit of optimism there. But look, let's see how this one pans out. As I say, there is a hint coming out as well that West Ham may just decide to leave this until the summer. But my gut feeling is, Tom, I think he's going to end up at West Ham before the window closes. And I think there'll be a part of us that will be quite excited and another part of us that will be thinking, oh, my God, because I like you now. I've just got this horrible image of him breaking down 5 minutes after running on the pitch, which would be so bloody West Ham, wouldn't it?
It would be. But I suppose the only other point worth noting at this time is that, and probably why Graham Potter is, thinking about it at least, is that if he wasn't injury prone, we're not even in the market for him. He's either fit and firing at Brighton, or he's been linked with an Arsenal, a Man City. I mean, Arsenal need a striker. You could think that would fit them like a glove. So when we are, where we are at the table, and we have to say that we're a mid-table side at the moment, trying to break into the European places. When you sign a striker, there is some sacrifice somewhere, because you're not going to get an absolute elite centre forward who's fit and firing, particularly in January. We know how difficult it is. So if Potter, like you say, if Potter thinks this is worth a gamble, then we've got to sit behind him. And if Evan Ferguson is holding up a West Ham shirt at the end of this transfer window, I'm sure you, like me, will be behind him as much as everyone else, and hope that he finally puts the end to this West Ham striker crisis.
Oh, don't, mate. I'm hoping we might see an end to it before I leave this bloody earth. You know what I mean? Jesus Christ, it's ridiculous, isn't it? No, look, I'm with you, mate. Look, let's see how this one pans out. It's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a few more videos to discuss about Evan Ferguson before we know what's going on, because it's chopping and changing all the time. It really is, and also there's obviously updates on other players as well. We're obviously interested in a few other positions as well in strengthening this January, but whether West Ham want to wait until the summer to do better business, we'll have to wait and see. But look, Tom, another great show with you again, mate. Always a pleasure. And we'll get you back on soon to discuss things, and I'm sure we'll have quite a fair amount to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. Cheers, Mark.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
All right.